Hello, America. My name is Dylan John, and you are listening to Nature and the Nation. And for today's episode, I'll be looking at The Failure of Technology by Friedrich Georg Junger. Copyright 1949. This is the brother of Ernst Junger. This book makes a pretty interesting and compelling critique of technology, technological mindset. I've got a bunch of sections I want to read here. Like all my episodes, I'll read some parts of the book and then provide some feedback. Probably not going to provide a tremendous amount of feedback on this. It's just good and entertaining, and I agree with a lot of what he says. So I'm not going to have arguments with the author about any of this stuff. I want to jump right in here and start reading from chapter 3. This is called The Delusion of Wealth. He says, quote, "Most deeply rooted of all the illusions which technical progress creates is probably that of the riches produced by it. At bottom, no one doubts that industry increases our riches, and that it does so all the more the further industrialization is spread by technical progress. It appears that there are historical and economic situations encouraging such a conviction. There are periods of prosperity which seem to strengthen and support it, the most fruitful being those brought about by the head start in mechanization which a few European nations had secured. It was an advantage resulting from a position of monopoly which could not be maintained, which dwindled away as technical thinking spread around the earth. It would be as interesting to study the causes of these advantages created by technical progress as it would be to determine the events which put an end to them. The common feature of every advantage of this sort is the exploitation of a propitious situation. But what are riches? If we want to get to the bottom of the thing, this question must be asked. The notions on this point are full of confusion, owing to jumbled concepts. Riches, by definition, are either a being or a having. If I conceive of them as a being, it is obvious that I am rich, not because I have much. Rather, all having is dependent upon the riches of my nature. So conceived, riches are not something which alight upon man or fly away from him. They are an endowment of nature, subject to neither will nor effort. They are original wealth, an added measure of freedom which blossoms forth in certain human beings. For riches and freedom are inseparably joined together, so intimately that riches of any kind can be appraised by the measure of freedom they contain. Riches, in this sense, may even be identical with poverty. A rich being is consistent with a not having, with a lack of material possessions. Homer means just this when he calls the beggar a king. Only such riches as are mine by nature can I fully command and enjoy. Where riches consist in having, the capacity for enjoying them does not necessarily go with them. It may be lacking, a frequent case. Where riches are one with rank, they also have that strength that is subject neither to change nor chance. They are as lasting and stable as are those treasures that cannot be spent nor consumed by time. But riches that are a mere having may be taken from me at any moment." End quote. So, not too much to say about that. He talks about the difference between being rich and having riches. And this book is about technology and the way that technology enables us to have riches, but not to be rich. It doesn't increase our being rich, or even really our having a lot. If you consider the content here from chapter 5, The Pillage of the Earth. In this section, he says, quote, "The impression we gain as we observe technical processes of any sort is not at all one of abundance. The sight of abundance and plenty give us joy. They are the signs of a fruitfulness, which we revere as a life-giving force. Rooting, sprouting, budding, blooming, ripening, and fruition, the exuberance of the motions and forms of life strengthen and refresh us. The human body and the human mind possess this power of bestowing strength. Both man and woman have it. But the machine organization gives nothing. It organizes need. The prospect of a vineyard, orchard, or a blossoming landscape cheers us not because these things yield profits, but because of the sensation of fertility, abundance, and gratuitous riches. The industrial scene, however, has lost its fruitfulness. It has become the scene of mechanical production. It conveys, above all, a sense of hungriness, particularly in the industrial cities, which, in the metaphorical language of technological progress, are the homes of a flourishing industry. The machine gives a hungry impression, and this sensation of a growing, gnawing hunger, a hunger that becomes unbearable, emanates from everything in our entire technical arsenal. When we enter a factory, be it a cotton mill, a foundry, a sawmill, or a powerhouse, everywhere we get the same impression. The consuming, devouring, gluttonous motion racing through time, restlessly and insatiably, reveals the never-stilled and never-to-be-stilled hunger of the machine. So obvious is this hunger that even the impression of concentrated power, which we receive in the centers of heavy industry, cannot overcome it. In fact, it is strongest in these centers, because precisely here we find the greatest greed for power. And as the rational mind which stands behind the machine and keeps watch over its automatic, mechanical motion, it too is hungry, and hunger follows it everywhere. It cannot shake off hunger. It cannot free itself from it. It cannot be stilled, however hard it may try. And how, indeed, could that be possible? This mind itself is consuming, gluttonous, and it has no access to riches. It cannot conjure up abundance. No effort of ingenuity, not all the inventive power that is brought to bear here can do it, for rationalization only sharpens hunger, and actually increases consumption. This growing consumption is a sign not of abundance, but of poverty. It is bound up with worry, want, and toil. It is precisely the methodical, disciplined effort leading to the perfection of the technical processes which destroys the basis for the hopes that certain groups place in this perfection. Progress, in its present rapid advance, creates an optical illusion, deceiving the observer into seeing things which are not there. Technology can be expected to solve all problems which can be mastered by technical means, but we must expect nothing from it which lies beyond technical possibilities. Since even the smallest mechanical process consumes more energy than it produces, how could the sum of all these processes create abundance? There can be no talk of riches produced by technology. What really happens is rather a steady, forever growing consumption. It is a ruthless destruction, the like of which the earth has never before seen. A more and more ruthless destruction of resources is the characteristic of our technology. Only by this destruction can it exist and spread. All theories which overlook this fact are lopsided because they disregard the basic conditions which in the modern world govern production and economics. In every healthy economy, the substance with which it works is preserved and used sparingly, so that consumption and destruction do not overstep the limit beyond which the substance itself would be endangered or destroyed. Since technology presupposes destruction, since its development depends upon destruction, it cannot be fitted into any healthy economic system. One cannot look at it from an economic point of view. The radical consumption of oil, coal, and ore cannot be called economy, however rational the methods of drilling and mining. Underlying strict rationality of technical working methods, we find a way of thinking which cares nothing for the preservation and saving of the substance. What is euphemistically called production is really consumption. The gigantic technical apparatus, that masterpiece of human ingenuity, could not reach perfection if technological thought were to be contained within an economic scheme, if the destructive power of technical progress were to be arrested. But this progress becomes all the more impetuous, the larger the resources at its disposal, and the more energetically it devours them. This is shown by the concentration of men and machines in the great mining centers, where the mechanization of work and the organization of man are most advanced. The rationality of technology, so impressively displayed here, becomes intelligible only when one has understood the conditions on which it depends. Its concomitant is waste and contempt for all rationality in the exploitation of the resources on whose existence technology depends, as the lungs depend on air. Where wastage begins, there begins desolation. And scenes of such desolation can be found even in the early days of our technology, in the era of the steam engine. These scenes are startling by the extraordinary ugliness and the cyclopean power which are characteristic of them. The machine invades the landscape with destruction and transformation. It grows factories and whole manufacturing cities overnight, cities grotesquely hideous, where human misery is glaringly revealed, cities which, like Manchester, represent an entire stage of technology, and which have become synonymous with hopeless dreariness. Technology darkens the air with smoke, poisons the water, destroys the plants and animals. It brings about a state in which nature has to be preserved from rationalized thinking, in which large tracts of land have to be set apart, fenced off, and placed under a taboo like museum pieces. What all museum-like institutions make evident is that preservation is needed. The extension of protected areas, therefore, is an indication that destructive processes are at work. Mining centers, in particular, are the focal points of organized pillage. The riches in the earth are being exploited and consumed. Human pauperization begins with the proletarization of the masses, who are indoctrinated to factory work and kept on a low level of existence. The exploitation of the factory worker, about which socialism is indignant only so long as it is in the opposition, is an inevitable symptom of the universal exploitation to which technology subjects the whole earth from end to end. Man, no less than ore deposits, belongs to the resources subject to consumption by technology. The ways in which the worker tries to evade this exploitation, associations, labor unions, political parties, are the very methods which tie him forever closer to the progress of technology, mechanical work, and technical organization. End quote. So that's kind of a long section, but it's good. The pillage of the earth. He's talking about the mining centers and the destruction of natural resources, wastage and desolation. He talks about how technology can't fit into a healthy economy because a healthy economy is always balancing consumption and destruction, keeping itself in a continuous system rather than a perpetual focus on growth. Next section I'm going to read is chapter 7, The Invasion of Life by the Automaton. He says, quote, "Technological progress is synonymous with an increase of all kinds of automations. The entire work process, up to the finished product, is performed by automatic machinery and with repetitious mechanical uniformity. The entire factory becomes one single automaton. The worker no longer manually interferes with the automaton. All he does is control mechanically some automatic operation. And just as the work processes which result in the end product are performed by an automaton, so the end product itself is very often an automaton designed for repetitious mechanical work processes. Here lies the difference between the automaton and all tools requiring continuous handling. Its purpose is automatic and uninterrupted mechanical functioning. We are surrounded by an automatism towards which all branches of technology are developing. The greater part of our production tools work automatically. Our transport is automatized in the form of the ubiquitous railways, motor ships, motor cars, airplanes, elevators, and so on. Our light, water, and heating systems function automatically. With our automatic weapons, it is the same. There are vending and food-serving automatons, radio and movie automatons, and all of them designed for the task of repetitious performance with mechanical uniformity, just as a phonograph record repeats the same piece over and over. It is exactly this automatism which gives its peculiar stamp to our civilization and sets it apart from the techniques of other eras. It is automatism by which our technology achieves its growing perfection. Its signature is the independent and unchanging repetitious operation of its apparatus. Mechanical work processes have grown immensely, both in number and in scope, and it is obvious that their automatism, controlled and watched as it is by man in turn, has its effect on man. The power that man gains by his automatic tools gains power over him. He is compelled to give them his thought and his attention. Inasmuch as he works with automatic tools, his work becomes mechanical and repetitious with machine-like uniformity. Automatism clutches the operator and never relinquishes its grip on him. To the consequences of this we shall return again and again. The invention of the automaton dates from antiquity, as is shown by the dove of Archytas and the robot of Ptolemy Philadelphos. These much-admired mechanisms, like the automatons of Albertus Magnus, Bacon, and Regiomontanus, were ingenious toys, nothing more serious. They evoked not only wonder, but also fear. The robot of Albertus Magnus, which could open the door and greet the visitor, the fruit of decades of effort, was smashed by the startled Thomas Aquinas with a blow of his stick. The intellectual fascination which machines have held for man from the earliest times is coupled with a presentiment of the uncanny, an almost unaccountable feeling of horror. We sense this in Goethe's remark on the advance of mechanical factory work, and in the shudder with which E.T.A. Hoffmann and Edgar Allan Poe viewed the automatons and mechanical figures of the early 19th century, among which the mechanical flute player, the drummer, and Vauc Hansen's mechanical duck are the most important. This is the same horror that has of old seized man in the presence of clocks, watermills, wheels, in the presence of any work or contrivance which acts and moves, although it has no life of its own. The beholder is not satisfied to study the mechanics. He is not satisfied with the understanding of their operation. He is disquieted by their mechanical action. This motion produces the illusion of life, and this illusion, once he has looked through it, is precisely what is so disturbing. End quote. So that's cool. It's kind of about the automaton, and it makes one think of artificial intelligence interacting and things that take on the appearance of life but are not actually alive, and the uncanniness of that, the illusion of life, and it fills people with a sense of horror. Next, I want to jump to chapter 15, the fallacy of specialist thought. In this section, he says, quote, "It goes without saying that the technician rejects everything that does not correspond to his ideas of efficiency and purpose. He will not doubt that what is technically purposeful is also desirable and advantageous. An inefficiently constructed machine gives him discomfort and disgust. In this it may be said that he is motivated not only by mechanical rules, but by professional honor and self-esteem as well. For a piece of slipshod engineering is not only inefficient, it also shows its designer in a bad light. It exposes him as a bungler. But this concept of efficiency needs examination. We must find the limits within which it makes sense. An example will make this clear. A well-constructed automobile is efficient because it fulfills the purpose it was meant to serve. Let us suppose that 5 million cars have been built according to such a well-constructed model, and that they were all in use. Nothing is changed thereby in the efficiency of the model. Rather, it could be said that such extensive use is sufficient proof of its efficiency. We could go further and suppose that this automobile, manufactured in some large plant, had been so successful that every adult in a large country makes use of it. Its efficiency is demonstrated by this even more clearly. But we must not forget that this efficiency is a matter purely of design and of production. That is, it is a specific efficiency. Whether it serves a purpose that every adult in the country owns and operates an automobile is, however, quite a different question. It is obviously of a more general nature, and as we go into it, we shall find that it takes us beyond the realm of technology. This is why technicians have never asked it. The technician derives a direct benefit from the fact that a maximum number of automobiles are in operation, for the mechanization of traffic answers his needs and his desires. He thus brings the automobile to technical perfection, without a thought of the non-technical consequences which an incessant increase in the number of automobiles must have. He will even demand that everybody should own at least one automobile, and we have all heard the jubilations with which this demand has been greeted. But whoever approves of anything like the 2 cars in every garage idea, by implication grants to every person an additional use and consumption of metals, oil, gasoline, coal, rubber, and other materials, which, applied to the whole earth, would lead to an extreme squandering of resources. To the direct consumption produced by such mechanization, there must be added that other consumption which is a byproduct of mechanization. Production and processing plants for all the raw materials, such as mines, steel mills, rubber plantations, are only part of this additional consumption. Enormous expansion of road networks, traffic organization, services of all kinds, are other immediate necessities. Motorization may be considered as a result of the technical organization of work, or vice versa, the technical work organization, or a result of motorization. Both are like the jaws of a pair of tongs, pressing down with equal force. All technical organization extends the technical apparatus. All mechanization, in turn, increases the rationalization of the social order. As long as the technical organization grows, its apparatus must grow, and vice versa. If we consider, on the one side, the technical organization as a whole, and on the other the whole apparatus with which it works, we gain a complete picture of the giant tongs and the tremendous pressures which they exert." End quote. So by tongs, he's talking about the twin pressures of technical organization and the apparatus. As long as the technical organization grows, its apparatus must grow, and vice versa. He says all technical organization extends the technical apparatus. All mechanization in turn extends the rationalization of the social order. So there's the tongs are the rationalization of the social order and the mechanization of the technical apparatus. He's talking about efficiency, but it doesn't ever really ask the question of whether or not it's good for people, for everybody to have 2 cars in their garage, for cars to spread everywhere and all the resources that are required for that project. Whether or not we should do this or that is a question that science can't answer. It's outside the realm of technology. Of course, technology answers yes. And, as we see in chapter 23, technology usurps the state. He says, quote, "Technology binds and sets free at the same time. It emancipates human thought from all transcendentals, but at the same time it confines this thought to all that is practical and mechanical. Technological thinking is obviously collectivistic, but such collectivistic thinking presupposes an individual, freed and cleansed from all conflicting considerations, an individual that will abandon itself unreservedly to the collective. Technology has no objection to the individual as such, so long as he surrenders unconditionally to the technical organization. it is as indifferent to the individual as, for instance, the mail carrier must be to the religious, political, or moral traits of the recipient of the mail. If this were not the case, the technical organization of the mails would quickly fall apart. On the other hand, technology does not only interfere with individual freedom where it eludes technical organization. In the field of law, technology not only turns against such individual rights as are still independent of its organization, it also turns against the right of association, the right of organization, wherever the groups thus formed are contrary to its interests. Neither does technology stop short of public law, constitutional law, or the state itself. On the contrary, it is precisely here that we can observe the most monstrous inroads by which technology permeates the whole life and the law of the state. These spreading infractions are made with a forceful consistency, so great that it gives the impression of inherent necessity. The situations are many where it is difficult for us to determine whether we are dealing with a statist or with a technical organization. The state is reduced to a choice of evils. For the sake of its own existence and survival, it must promote and protect the progress of technology. But while the state is doing this, technology infiltrates and usurps the governing and administrative activities of the state. It begins to transform the whole military and civil service organization. This mechanization appears to increase the powers of the state, and it does so indeed, even to an extent that seems to render negligible any disadvantages that may be involved. But precisely this colossal increase in power should warn the thoughtful that all this additional power comes to the state not as a free gift, but as a loan from which technology expects to gain. And that is indeed the case. With every act of mechanization, technology drives the wedge of its causal mechanism deeper into the state. Every expansion of technology brings new infiltrations of mechanistic thought that change the very essence of the state. Automatism spreads into government, the same automatism toward which all mechanization tends, and with automatism comes the rigidity which is the essence of all precision machinery, geared to high speed. Man not only becomes dependent upon the functioning of the state organization, he is also set in motion by it. He is constantly subjected to extensive mechanical compulsion. Wherever the state succumbs to this technological coercion, there triumphant technology lords it over the state with its technical organization. Wherein lies the secret of this amazing success of technical thinking? It lies most of all in the fact that technology knows no hierarchy, that it concentrates upon the mastery of mechanical laws which are general and in themselves without quality. Neither are technical products imbued with genuine quality, for such qualities as are ascribed to them are merely incidental and not determining factors. The characteristic of standardized technical products is not their quality, but their mechanical uniformity." End quote. So that's most of chapter 23 there, actually. The chapters are short, so that was most of chapter 23. Technology usurps the state, and it's pretty... He really ascribes a lot of power to technology, and yet is he wrong? Everywhere, every aspect, every corner of human life is, saturated with technology. So with that dark vision, I'm going to leave off the rest of this book. There were a few other chapters I considered reading, but I think I'll just leave it there. Thank you very much for listening to another episode of Nature in the Nation. Catch you next time.